work holding on a Nicholson apron. Nicholson aprons, the hole pattern isn't random. As you can see, the holes are 3.5 inches from the top, and then 1 inch down, 2 inches over. 1 inch down, 2 inches over. The reason for this spacing is so that you can work hold different size pieces. So if I put a 1x4 or a 2x4 or a 3x4 or whatever, any piece that's by 4 inches, you can see that it is held in place and above the work surface. That allows me to do planing operations and mortising operations and everything like that on that while keeping the workpiece supported. If I drop these down one hole, then you can see that the 4-inch piece is right flush with the top, and that would leave a 6-inch piece 1.5 inches proud of the bench top. So the next one would be 1 inch further down, 1 inch further down, so that would be for 8 buys, 1 inch further down, and then the last one on the bottom here would allow a 10-inch piece to stick up 1.5 inches above the work surface. So that's the reason for those angled holes. At least that's the simple reason for the angled holes. There's a more complex reason as well. If I put these pins in these straight up and down holes here, which are 2 inches apart and 12 inches apart, then I can create a vise for whatever piece. So if I drop in a 1x here, it is supported by the pins, and when I put the holdfasts on, now the workplace piece is held in place by this faceplate, and it keeps this piece perfectly solid so that I can do end cuts off the end of the board. I can do mortising cuts directly into it and have it fully supported. I can do drilling operations on the face of it or in the end of it, and all the while this piece can be finished and ready to be assembled, except for the final holes and whatever other work needs to be done on it. That allows you to do all your finishing operations on a large board and then cut that board into the appropriate pieces for assembly and still be able to do work on them without ever marring it. So that's the advantage of that. If I don't use that piece, then I can either use the holdfast directly on the board itself, which will mar the board, or I can put a wooden spacer in, which now will not mar the board. A lot of people put leather pads on their holdfasts, but the leather pads, while they will reduce the marring on the board, leather pads still accumulate dirt over time, and they can leave smears and dirt marks on the wood. Whereas if you keep your wooden spacers clean, they won't leave a mark on your board at all. No scarring or mud marks. The other reason for this angled pattern of holes is for work holding pieces that are either odd shaped or odd lengths for different kinds of operations. I can move this onto one of these holes to fine-tune my holding so that if I want to do a planing operation on this awkward piece, I can line it up with the edge and I can find a hole which will give me a nice angle and good hold. Normally we would knock these holdfasts in with a hammer just to get a really solid hold, but I'm just demonstrating here. So one other thing that I can show you is I have these little blocks made which are flush with the dowel on the top, 1 inch from the dowel on the bottom, and 1.5 inches on either side. So that allows me to put that in the top hole and allow it to support something that's only 1.5 inches or 1.25 inches wide, and still have it proud of the top of the bench for planing operations. It also allows me to do something that is 1.5 inches to 2 inches. Less proud of the top, a little lower down, a little more control. Okay, I can also put a holdfast in the top holes and put my support board in there and be able to clamp much thicker objects, up to about 8 to 10 inches thick. Can be clamped just as effectively as anything else. And this board also allows you to clamp boards vertically up to 8 feet wide, which is the width of my bench. So you can clamp any object in there from the floor, 39 inches tall or taller, depending on how high you want to work on it, onto the face of the bench and hold it very securely. For example, I am doing this hexagonal piece, taking end cuts off of it, and I've got now this one in the number 3 hole and this one in the number 1 hole in order to hold this securely while I saw it. So now I've got my 10-inch piece. I'm going to cut off 5 inches of that and leave 5 inch of my hexagonal piece clamped firmly against the end of the bench. It won't move. Solid as a rock.